Months back, I found myself in a situation that still has me questioning if I handled it right. My younger sister, who's still navigating the highs and lows of high school, was seeing this guy named Chris. Chris seemed like the whole package: smart, charming, and a genuine sweetheart. Initially, I was the overprotective brother, skeptical because, well, he was dating my sister. But over time, Chris proved himself to be a stand-up guy. He was into sports, aced his classes, and honestly became a friend. So, imagine my surprise when I pulled up early from work one day and spotted an unknown car in my driveway. Shrugging it off as another friend of my sister's, I walked in, only to find her cozying up with another dude in the living room. They scrambled at the sound of me coming in, giving me just a glimpse of what was going down. I made a beeline for the bathroom, figuring they'd appreciate a moment to, sort themselves out. Post-bathroom break, I returned to the scene only to find the guy is someone from my high school days, and not just anyone but a dude known for his less than stellar reputation. This guy was the epitome of trouble back in the day, always high, disruptive in class, you name it. I couldn't help but confront my sister about ditching Chris for this, let's just say, not an upgrade. This kid didn't take kindly to my commentary and seemed keen on turning it into a physical altercation right outside. I wasn't having it and, let's just say, firmly escorted him to the exit. My sister was devastated, and despite my attempts to understand her actions, she clammed up. The whole ordeal left me in a moral dilemma. I debated whether to clue in Chris, feeling torn between loyalty to my sister and what seemed like the right thing to do. Ultimately, I decided Chris deserved to know and gave him a call that night. He was understandably upset and chose to end things with my sister. Fast forward, and the rift between my sister and me hasn't quite healed. We've barely crossed paths since, partly due to my work schedule. This whole mess has left me feeling caught in the middle, regretful for my early return that day, yet empathetic towards Chris's situation. Despite the awkwardness of how things went down, Chris and I managed to maintain our friendship. It's a strange tale, I know, especially the part where I had to physically remove a high school kid from my house, but trust me, it was the last resort after he outright refused to leave. So, the dude was ready to throw down, and I'm guessing he's around 18, right? They're both seniors, but clearly, the guy's not the sharpest tool in the shed. Now, looking back, maybe it would have been wiser to nudge my sister into telling Chris herself. Like, laying it out that if she didn't come clean, I would have to step in. She messed up big time, and facing Chris directly would have been the right kind of tough love. Sure, she'd still be mad at me, but at least it'd be because I pushed her to do the right thing, not because I went behind her back. Let's face it, cheaters have a knack for keeping their dirty laundry under wraps. The moment you give them a chance to straighten up, they use it to pull everyone else into their mess, twisting the truth and making you out to be the villain for blowing the whistle. Keeping the cheated in the dark while everyone else feels like they're part of the deception? That's just wrong. I stood up for Chris because, honestly, if I were in his shoes, I'd want to know the truth straight away. Finding out later that you've been lied to and cheated on for ages? That's a pain no one should have to endure. Better for Chris to cut his losses now and find someone who truly values him. And then there's my situation. I, a 25-year-old woman, just got engaged to the man of my dreams, Ben, who's 30. We're buzzing with excitement and planning an engagement party to introduce our families to each other. My sister Avery, who's 31 and has always been the family's golden child, just flew back home. She's been all over the globe, Southeast Asia, Africa, the Middle East, doing incredible work as a physician. Now, she's looking for a change. But no matter what, Avery has always somehow managed to steal the spotlight, even during moments that were supposed to be mine, like my high school graduation. She wasn't even there, and yet, everyone kept raving about how incredible she was because we both went to the same school. It's like wherever she lands, she's the only one in the room. Before the party kicked off, I had a heart-to-heart with her, explaining how much this day meant to Ben and me. I even asked her, just this once, to let the spotlight shine on us. She said she'd do it. But as soon as the party started, it was like we were invisible. Our family did a quick hello to us and then beelined for Avery to hear all about her wild tales from Uganda or Yemen. In no time, she was the center of attention, again. I had to pull her aside and tell her she was hogging the limelight, despite our talk. She brushed me off, calling me ridiculous, claiming it wasn't her fault she had a life that fascinated everyone. I gave her an ultimatum, dial it down or leave. She chose to storm off, calling me pathetic and jealous. Now, my folks are on my case, saying I should have been more understanding. It's a tricky one. Sure, Avery's globe-trotting life is interesting, but we had an agreement. This was supposed to be about celebrating our engagement, not her latest escapade. I wouldn't have minded if everyone was gathered around Aunt Maud to chat about her hip surgery. But asking Avery to not eclipse us for one evening doesn't seem too much, right? If she's smart enough to be a physician, she could have easily steered the conversation away from herself. She didn't, and that's on her, not me. And yeah, our parents should be proud of both their daughters, not just the one who travels the most. Fast forward, and imagine the chaos if Avery's beau popped the question at my wedding dinner. She'd probably say, "Oh, it's because I'm in town for a short while," as if that makes it okay. And you bet, our family wouldn't bat an eyelid. Then there's the tale of my son's partner, who's convinced I'm out to get her because I suggested a paternity test when she got pregnant. Despite never insulting her, our first meeting was frosty, to say the least. My son sided with her, and our relationship has been on thin ice ever since. Now, with a grandchild in the picture, I'm resigned to being the outsider, barely seeing them at family gatherings. This Thanksgiving, when it was their turn to host, she bluntly told me I wasn't welcome. So, my husband and I decided to throw our own dinner, and guess what? None of the other kids are going to hers now. Suddenly, I'm the one getting bombarded with messages from her. After my son accused me of being a jerk for wanting to cancel my own Thanksgiving gathering, I sent him a text with screenshots showing I wasn't invited to his place. He was clueless about the whole situation and thought I was the one hosting just to avoid upsetting his wife. He then sent messages that just added to the confusion. I tried reaching out to my daughter-in-law to get her side of the story about the paternity test situation and whether they were exclusive at the time. No luck there, she didn't pick up. Turns out, they had a break when she got pregnant after dating for just a couple of months, then patched things up and got back together before discovering the pregnancy. My son made it seem like I was the one pushing for the paternity test. Honestly, it's a mess. If my daughter-in-law wasn't exclusive with my son when she got pregnant, suggesting a paternity test was just being cautious. If she's upset over that, it's on her. It's clear she's not too thrilled with me, but it seems like she's battling her own guilt and projecting it onto me. Thankfully, my other children are on my side. Her decision to exclude me but invite my husband just showcases her character, and I feel for my son and grandchild having to deal with her attitude. But why is all the blame landing on my daughter-in-law? Could my son have played a part in this by not being upfront about their relationship status? It's high time for a heart-to-heart, just the two of us. It wouldn't surprise me if he's been stirring the pot for years, just to cover his own tracks. If I found out my mother-in-law had labeled me carelessly while I was innocently carrying her grandchild, I'd keep my distance too. It sounds like a classic case of miscommunication and misplaced blame. On a different note, I decided to keep my husband's family away from our baby until she's between 6 to 12 months old. This wasn't a joint decision with my husband, but I'm standing firm. Both my mother-in-law and sister-in-law visited last week, and shortly after, our baby got sick with an upper respiratory infection. Despite the doctor advising continued breastfeeding and giving her an RSV vaccine, I've drawn a line to protect her health. My husband inadvertently shared all this with his mom because of his phone issues, but I'm not backing down, no matter how it affects him. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law decided to drop by to meet our little girl without mentioning a pretty crucial detail. They'd both been exposed to the flu recently. One caught it from a client, and the other's husband was battling the panini flu just last week. And here's the kicker. I had explicitly asked if they'd been sick or around anyone who was, and they assured me they were in the clear. Talk about a bold-faced lie. To add to the drama, during their visit, I'm on the phone turning away another relative because her kid had the flu. I'm all about playing it safe, but these two, they acted as if they hadn't just waltzed into my house with flu cooties. When I found out, I confronted them over the phone, And all I got was a lecture on building the baby's immune system. As if I told them straight up they're not setting foot near my daughter until she hits her first birthday, if at all, because their selfishness is off the charts. Now, my husband's all riled up, claiming I'm driving him into isolation and possibly depression given his history. He's a big family guy and thinks I'm the Grinch for doing this right before the holiday season. But here's where I stand. Our daughter's health trumps everything, and if his family can't respect that, they're out. My circle of friends thinks I'm the one in the wrong here, saying it should be a joint decision with my husband. But let's get real. Exposing a newborn to sickness? What were they thinking? And it's not like I've banned his entire family, just the two culprits. If he's craving family time that badly, he can visit them solo and make sure to decontaminate afterward if it means keeping our baby safe. It's about prioritizing our child's well-being over everything else. And as a dad, that should be his focus too. He's got to manage his mental health, but not at our daughter's expense. Maybe we need to find some middle ground here, like insisting on masks and hand hygiene for any family visits. But one thing's for sure, I'm not budging on keeping our little one safe. If your partner isn't on board with keeping your baby safe from folks who've shown they can't be trusted not to bring germs into your home, then it might be time to stick to your guns and keep up the no visits rule. I mean, think about it. We're talking about people who knowingly risked a newborn's health. Do we really think they'll stick to wearing masks or washing hands just because we ask nicely? This is one of those actions have consequences situations. Your little one's well-being trumps everything else, including family ties that come with unnecessary risks. Your husband can spend time with his family if he wishes, but you and your baby girl, you're staying put in your safe haven, far from any disrespect. Now, shifting gears to a different story. I've got this buddy, let's call him the guy, and his friends, Jay and Annie, who've been in his life since their wild teenage years. Fast forward, Jay and Annie settle down, have a family, including their now 19-year-old daughter, Emily, who seems to be enjoying her youth to the fullest, much like her parents did back in the day. She's all over Instagram, living her best life, which, frankly, is her right. So, they all catch up over dinner, chatting about their kids who are hitting the books and jobs, while Emily's out exploring the world, partying it up. He makes a comment, something about the apple not falling far from the tree, implying Emily's just following in her folks' footsteps. Jay didn't take kindly to that, and Annie let them know it wasn't cool. Here's the deal. Yes, that was a no-go zone. Why? Because diving into commentary on someone else's kid's life choices, especially based on social media, is stepping over the line. Plus, it came off a bit like he was saying his kids are somehow doing better just because they're on a different path, which, let's be real, could be seen as throwing shade. It's a bit rich, isn't it? A grown man scrolling through a young woman's social feeds, getting all worked up over her adventures. It's not just about what was said. It's the vibe it gave off, kinda judgy, maybe even a tad envious of the freedom and experiences being embraced by Jay, Annie, and Emily. His own kid even said Emily's a blast to be around, so what's the deal with the scrutiny? It's time for a little self-reflection on why these comments were made and to maybe brush up on those social graces. Everyone's journey is their own, and it's not really for us to judge, especially out loud, at dinner, about someone else's kid.